So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. This is, my name's Alicia Moran, and I'm the manager of small business development here at Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation. And I run our business incubator and help to manage small business services. And so we're really pleased to have formed a partnership with Lurch Early and Brewer to bring to you certain programming related to legal elements of owning and running a business. So we can go to the next slide. And so one of the things I'll get into here, the next slide, please. We have formed a partnership with Lurch Early Brewer, and they are actually a sponsor of Innovation Station as well. And so we thank them for their partnership and their sponsorship. So in addition to providing co-branded and co-hosted programs like today's program, they also are providing some pro bono legal support services to our members of the Innovation Station community. And so we really appreciate them and really are glad to have this partnership that again is focusing on helping Prince George's County business owners understand the legal elements and the legal environment in which they operate. And so the other week we talked a little bit about last month we talked a bit about buying and selling a business. This month we're talking about the ABCs of business formation and the legal elements. We'll be touching upon employment law and then also some other elements of contracts. So obviously when you're in business, there's lots of contracts you enter into. So next slide, please. So again, there's my contact information. If you need to reach out to me afterwards, please feel free to send me an email. And I want to introduce my colleague who is also on the line with us today, David Lewis. David Lewis is my colleague who actually deals with our federal agencies. We have several colleagues at the EDC, so just know we have experts in manufacturing, retail, restaurant, healthcare. We have an international business liaison. We have folks who understand manufacturing and construction industry, etc. So just know that there are lots of resources at the EDC, and we are here to support you as you're growing. And so I realize some companies may be located in other counties. Whatever county you're in, you have a local economic development agency, and I just encourage you to reach out to them. Next slide. So we host a bunch of small business services, as I've noted, including programs like this, trainings and workshops. I just was on a call with FSC First, working with a business owner who was looking to get access to capital. So we work with our financing partners, whether that's at the SBA or FSC First, DHCD, all the different funding entities, and we help work together to actually get you to the right kind of funding source. We make connections to resource partners. So if you didn't know it, SCORE is a tremendous resource. They are retired executives, and they actually can help you with your business plan, can help you as you're mapping out your financial elements of your business plan, etc. We work with the Small Business Development Center. They too have a host of programs. Just earlier this morning, I was working with Russell Teeter, and they've done a whole COVID-19 CEO Accelerator Pivot program, trying to help companies understand how to pivot and navigate these current times. The Procurement Technical Assistance Center, PTAC, would be another example. If you're doing government contracting, there are counselors out there that can help you look at federal, state, and local procurement opportunities. The Maryland Women's Business Center, that has a location in Rockville, Maryland, and also in Bowie, Maryland, that covers our region. They, again, do a host of programs. TechCo would be another example of a partner. Resource partner, those would be TechCo supports technology-enabled companies. So if you have a patent or patentable technology, please give me a ring and then let's connect you to TechCo and connect you to other resources that may be available to you. So there's funding resources as well as market research entry resources and a host of others. So again, we, as a small business service in Prince George's County, we have a local incubator associated with our economic development agency. And so that is Innovation Station Business Incubator. And that again is what I'm involved in. And that again is what Lurch Early Brewer is helping assist and support here. We have connections to other business incubators all across the state of Maryland. So again, there are several others in Prince George's County, several in Montgomery County, and across the state. So we would work to get you to the right incubator depending upon what your needs are. as an economic development agency, we can help you with site selection. If you're looking for a particular property, we can assist you in that effort, and we can assist you in a lot of different ways. So this is just some short and sweet ways in which we do provide services to companies. Next slide. So again, this is like a grid of I took a sheet of 58 places and reasons why we might have send people to different resources. And so this is just a slide that kind of outlines, innovators may need certain kind of financing or resources versus a general small business owner who doesn't have intellectual property, but is running a very important, music studio or a real estate firm or something else, right? So again, there's traditional types of financing, innovators financing, there's certifications, and who do you go to do business certifications, registering your business, all those types of things, and then the early part of starting your businesses. So we are your spoke, right? Or we're the center of the spoke, and we connect you to the different resources as you're moving along. Next slide. So again, our business incubator is really about helping startup companies, helping business retention, so local companies that are looking for maybe additional resources, like in this environment, when you're in a remote environment, we have virtual tenancies. And so this is a great way to become associated with Innovation Station and to get to additional resources as part of that without having to give up your space, right? And it's really about, we attract foreign direct investment as well. So we have many international companies from Israel, Nigeria, India, and a host of others. So, we just recruited a new company from Italy that is in working with NASA, and the International Space Station. So just know there's lots going on in Prince George's County, and there are lots of resources for local business entities there. Next slide. Real quick, because of COVID-19, we had a $20 million loan fund that turned into a grant fund. You're going to see that a little later in this deck. But I just wanted to mention that in addition to the financial resources, we wanted to create additional wraparound services. So we created the Emerge Stronger program. If you go to www.emergestrongerpgc.com, and I'll put it in the chat, you can see that there are CEO boot camps for those in the retail, restaurant, healthcare, and Spanish speaker business owners. We also have counseling sessions that are group counseling sessions, bringing in resource partners and turnaround agents and finance people all into one session with a one-on-one with a company. We have a mentoring program that is also part of the Emerge Stronger session. And we also have a series of financial programs that are part of that. So I'll put it in the chat. And again, I just encourage you to take a look at that. We are also supporting our local businesses. So Buy Prince George's is a local campaign that, again, we're trying to support our local small businesses. Again, we have a Spanish speaking liaison to the Hispanic business community, and we do actual special programming all in Spanish. We have a Takeout Tuesday session as well. So come learn about the great restaurants and takeout entities we have. And I know I'm taking a little bit of time, but next slide, please. So again, we had a $20 million loan fund that turned into a grant fund. More than close to 600 companies got support out of that. We also have hourly relief fund. There is a new child care recovery fund that is currently accepting applications as well. So whether it's a home-based or a center, there are resources for you. There was a $1 million legacy fund that was supported by the Greater Washington Community Foundation. And I just encourage you to stay in touch because there are new funds and new opportunities coming about each and every day, either from the state of Maryland, the county, the federal government, etc. So just be aware and stay in touch. pgcedc.com is our website, and that's a great place to go to look for all our resources. Next slide, please. And see, without further ado, we really want to introduce you to Paul Alpucci, who has been 25 years in the business and works with a lot of younger companies and established companies that are kind of 1 or 2 years in and maybe looking to take things to the next step. And so again, we're pleased to have him here and to have his expertise, and he's now going to get into the meat of today's program on the elements of business formation and the legal aspects of them. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
And thank you, Alicia. My name's Paul Alpucci. I'm a business and tax attorney at Lurch Early and Brewer. We Lurch Early and Brewer are a 75-year-old law firm in Montgomery County. We are a regional law firm in that we service clients throughout the DMV. Because of the way business is conducted these days, even small business owners, step into the fact that they are providing services or selling goods outside of their immediate jurisdiction where they might be formed or where the owner might actually reside. So in the context of representing business owners, we touch transactions and contracts up and down the East Coast. I was dealing with some folks that got a cannabis license yesterday, and the people that they intend to be doing business with sent them a contract that had an Illinois provision in it, and we all stopped and agreed and said, we're a Maryland business entity, they're a Maryland business entity, Maryland law should govern it. It didn't seem to be a big problem. But as a regional law firm, we are also a full service law firm. And what that really means is we take care of all aspects of our clients' legal needs. That includes if you're going to a bank to borrow money, that would include our community associations group, which represents homeowner associations throughout the state of Maryland, all the way out to the beach, all the way back into Prince George's County and Montgomery County. Both of those groups, our commercial lending group and our community associations group, they have national reputations. The people that head those practice groups are really the creme de la creme in terms of that subject matter group. I'm personally a business and tax attorney, and that means I represent business owners at each stage in the process. Some of them are like you, they've run their businesses for a year or two or three, or they're still full-time employed and thinking about starting a new business. They have an idea and they want to figure out what the next steps are. So, I consider it a cradle to gravestone approach. And hopefully the gravestone approach becomes, selling to a bigger company, a monetization event so everybody gets happy at the end, or passing the business to the children of the principal owners or passing it to their key employees. There are different ways to get out of businesses, but those are always the goals. We all go into business to make money. And, that's why I presume you're all here today. And what I would want to, sort of just lay out for you now, and everybody, I think Scott mentioned, if you have any questions, you can chat them to us right now. I have it up on my screen. I think I'll pick it up, in real time and respond to you. Obviously, you have my contact information, and you can get to me anytime you want. I'm always happy to, figure out if there's something I can do to help you, down in figuring out what you need. What Alicia said about being the center of the wheel and all the spokes coming off of her organization, off of the PG Economic Development Corporation, that resonates with me, because all of my small business clients, and this sort of jumps to the very end of the presentation, which is, having a network, but all of my small business clients, you need accountants to do your books and records. If you don't have an accounting degree or can't manage doing QuickBooks or, any kind of tax software, you need help with people to help you with marketing and human resources. And hopefully when you become successful, you need somebody to help you manage your money, a wealth management. You need insurance people. I, as a small business owner, I represent all of those people. All the businesses that you all run are all Lurch Early and Brewer clients. And when my clients come to me, one of the hospices we represent needed a roof. And I stopped and said, here are 3 roofing companies you can call. One of my other clients came to me and said something about a wedding. I was like, yeah, here are the 3 catering companies that I know that we use that are clients of ours. So that function of looking at your business lawyer as part of the wheel that helps advise you, we become, trusted professionals in the view of our clients. That's what we strive to do. And we strive to do that through, developing trust, showing integrity, providing value at the end of the day to our clients in terms of legal services, So, that's how I view philosophically what I do. And again, today, if you have any questions that come out of this and we don't catch them either through the chat process or through the Q&A at the end, you can all email me, pick up the phone and talk to me. I know for certain that, Cynthia and Katrina, at a minimum, I'm going to be able to help you two with something, as you stop and get ready to bring on employees and grow your businesses. There's sort of a very simple tax planning technique that you two want to know. You might not be ready to implement it in 2020, but in the latter part of 21 or 22, you're going to stop and say, oh, I can save some self-employment taxes. And this is where you're going to have learned that. Ngozi, I know you're out there. I don't know if you're my Ngozi. My very first and very favorite client is Ngozi. So I don't know if that's you or not, but.
Yeah, Ngozi is here. Yes,
hi, Ngozi.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, so you're not Ngozi Arandi. You're Ngozi Asonu. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm Ngozi Asonu.
Right. I love that name, and it had such good feeling seeing it. So anyway,
Okay.
I'm looking forward to meeting you. So I guess, the first thing we're going to talk about is developing your business plan. So Scott, I thank you for flipping the slide at this moment. Okay. As I said to Alicia a few moments ago, the biggest mistake small business owners make is that they actually fail to put together comprehensive business plans. The business plan is it's the document that tells you what you're trying to do. And if you can't explain that to me clearly, it makes it very hard to do all the other things that you need to do in order to run a successful business. And again, my definition of a successful business is you're doing something you like, that you want to be doing versus working for somebody else, and that you're making a profit at it, making at least enough money to make yourself happy in the context of what you need to be doing, who you have to support. And so you don't have to, have a job. And if you have a business plan and you sit there and say, I love doing this, but you have obligations and you can only make $5,000 running your business and you need to make $50,000, then that's not a good business for you to be in. And it means you need to stop and reevaluate your business plan and figure out a way it can get you to what you are trying to achieve as a small business owner. I see business plans that are very simple to very complex, and I wouldn't say that there's any certain way to do it that is going to ensure you are successful. But I think the 4 bullet points that we have on this slide, are really, substantive provisions. If you go and Google business plans, you will find, 35 things you need to put in your business plan. I looked at a few of those and, I synthesized it down to this. And I thought these were the things, the main points being, really what it is that what you're offering to the public. Because to have a successful business plan, you have to deliver something, whether it's goods, whether it's services, whether it's a combination of that. You need to deliver something that the public wants and they're willing to pay for. And understanding what you're delivering is something they need: food, groceries, medical care, legal services sometimes, or whether what you're offering is an extravagance, a luxury, bicycles. I used to build bikes when I was a kid. That was my first job. And my mom and dad were fine with me living in my uncle's basement and building bikes because I loved doing that. At some point, I realized it was taking me days and weeks to build a bike, and I was selling a bike for about $115. So that's when I said, you know what? That college idea that my parents are willing to help me with, that might be a better idea. But I love building bikes, And my cousin, he owns a bike store now, but, he figured out a way to make the bike store work for him. I never had a way to make that work. So, understanding what it is that you want to deliver and how you're going to deliver it to the market is really important. And then the very last point on here, the very last bullet point says you need to understand who your competitors are and whether or not you can realistically beat them. This is something that people ignore all the time. Business is about competition. Whatever it is you're doing, somebody else is out there trying to do it. And they're trying to do it faster, They're trying to do it in a less expensive way. They're trying to do it in a way that they can maximize their profit margin. So if you don't stop and look at who your competitors are, you're going to be at a disadvantage in the marketplace. And sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you're in a world that, that there's just such a lapse of available service providers that you're the one. But for the most part, most of us have to look around and we have to decide who it is we're going to be able to beat in order to be successful in business. And I guess the last point I would make about what your business plan is, and again, this is going to tell you what it is that you do. Don't lose track of the fact that this is going to change over time. Today we're doing this, but 3 months from now, 8 months from now, the world's slightly different or dramatically different, and we've got to modify what our plans are. This is a living, breathing document, not something that you draft for purposes of, and then put in a drawer and leave alone. Legal contracts, we draft, put in drawers, and leave alone, and we ignore them because they have no meaning until we need them. Business plans are living, breathing documents. So I think that's all I need to say about the business plan, Scott. If you can flip to the next slide. Thank you. Okay. Budgeting. Okay, second slide is about budgeting, both from two stages, the launch stage and the operational stage. Budgeting is diet and exercise. Everybody seems to understand this analogy. Your revenues, what you generate from your business, that's your nutrition. That's the food you eat, okay? What you spend your money on and the profit you make off your business that sustains your life and helps you accumulate wealth, that's the exercise component of it. That's what you're doing with it. So today, I'm sitting here with a new business owner, and they have a business plan. They know what they want to deliver to the market. They know who their competitors are, and they're saying, I can do better than that. I got an office cleaning business, and I know that they charge for this many people each night that amount of money because I work for a company and we're paying that bill. And I'm thinking I can do that better. So now your budget is the document that helps you understand how much money you need to get to the point where you are generating revenue and then ultimately creating a profit. And again, the point of the profit is to replace your current income and allow you to accumulate wealth. So the budget component of the business plan is something that people have the most trouble with, but it's the easiest to find assistance for. And that's because there are a lot of people out there that have either a high level of accounting skill or a modest level of accounting skill, but enough to explain to somebody who might be a hair designer and wants to open up a salon, but has no idea how to figure out what rent is, how much you have to pay employees. You can sit down with a number of different professionals and paraprofessionals that will help you provide the details to the business plan, the detail to the budget that is going to help you implement your business plan. So let me see about what else I want to talk about here. Okay. I think the bullet points speak for themselves, and I think I'd like to flip to the next bullet point, Scott. The next slide, Scott, the capital uses. Okay. Our business plan and our budget told us how much money we need to implement the business plan and hopefully make a profit. Now we need to go out and find the capital, okay? This is by far the trickiest part of every business plan. And it's the part everybody spends the most time thinking about because it's scary as hell. I need $100,000 to start my business. It's one thing if you have, a computer and access to the internet and you can generate product or service off of that. But when you sit here and say, I might need space for storage, for equipment, I might manufacture something, I can make a better widget that isn't protected by law that somebody else is making. When you need to go out and raise capital, it's a very disconcerting experience. So my first thing to note for all of you is be patient and be flexible. You're going to ask people for money again and again. You need to keep listening to them, and you need to stay attentive. You need to stay diligent, and you need to be willing to accept alternatives, because it's easy for somebody to go out and get money who already has money. I joke about the president of the United States, but yeah, it happens that somebody looked at one of his buildings and said it was worth X and loaned him X minus. Tomorrow his business is worth more money or less money. Doesn't matter. He's got the capital off of that business already. When you have assets and you have a substantial amount of resources, it's somewhat easier to get capital. But when you're sitting there as a young entrepreneur in your early 20s or mid 20s, or even in your early 40s, you work for 10 or 15 years and now you know what you want to do. You're tired of working. Maybe you've had a job, you can retire from it, start a second career, but you need money to do it. That's a challenging ask. And I think it's important that everybody understand that there are a lot of alternatives out there, and some of them are better than others. Okay. So now I've said to you, be patient. I've said to you, be flexible. I'm going to point out some obvious sources for capital to you, okay? And this might be more relevant for people who are more senior than the right out of college trying to get started. But your home equity is a really solid source of capital for small business owners. It's something that you can easily access. You can go out and get a home equity line and put it in place before you're even thinking about or fully develop your operating budget. Your home equity line can be something that you can look at and say, this is how much money I can raise, because my house is worth 300. I have 100 of equity. The bank's willing to give me 75. My wife's only going to let me borrow 25. So now I only have 25 of equity to start my business. That can be a really obvious and really convenient way to go out and get money. Small business loans are different. When you go to the bank, same bank, they have your mortgage. You've been paying it every month for 10 years, and you got 20 years left on it. They know how much money you deposit in your direct deposit every month, every week on your paycheck, and they have a relationship with you. You go to them and tell them you want the money for a small business loan. They have just a slightly different view of the situation. In that instance, they want to know what kind of assets you have. And there's just a higher degree of review involved at the bank when it comes to making a small business loan. Now, SBA loans are slightly different, and that's what the PPP loans were. I don't know how many people on this call may have had the opportunity to take advantage of receiving a PPP loan, but the PPP loans are SBA loans, and those loans go through a approval process slightly more quickly than regular loans from banks. Same borrowers, same lenders, just different lending process, and SBA loans are a little bit easier to achieve. But you still need personal guarantees, and you need assets to get those types of loans. I skipped the first bullet point on here, which is personal savings. Obviously, it's risky to put your own savings into a business venture, and it's much simpler to do when you're 25 than when you're 55. We have more recovery time, and a lot of the successful entrepreneurs I know, my client in Ngozi and some of my other longstanding clients, they've done this as entrepreneurs. They've had very successful periods of time, and then they've had times when their businesses haven't been going at the same level. And that means you got to be able to, get through those times. And that's when your personal savings become, a source of maybe taking care of your kids, taking care of your house, and you're losing money for a couple of months, a year or so, and then you turn it around, especially, in this time frame. everybody in the restaurant business and the hospitality business is looking for a way to, strengthen their core revenue source. And that's why everybody's doing home delivery service. That's why everybody's doing takeout. But another source of capital would be utilizing the key employees that are going to work for your business. If you have a business and your business plan is going to require a certain amount of skill to get to the point where you can generate revenue, and your business plan says, I need to hire a professional. Well, if that professional comes to you and, I want to get paid for what I do, presumably they're going to want to get paid for what they do. If they're in a situation where they can say to you, okay, I don't need to get paid right now. My spouse works. This is a second career for me. I live in my parents' basement. My mom and dad still feed me. If you can find young professionals like that, or more senior professionals who don't have immediate needs, one of the cleanest and simplest ways to get capital that you need to execute that business plan is to smile at them and shake their hand and say, congratulations, we're partners. You give them a small piece of your company, and you keep control of the company. You don't necessarily make them 50-50 partners unless they're bringing something tremendous to the table. If Mark's coming to me, I'm making Mark my 50-50 partner. He's got a serious look on his face. He's not afraid to look at man in the eye. The rest of you guys are all hiding up, and Gozy just showed up. All right, but Mark's sitting here, and you can take a measure of somebody, right? And you can make somebody your partner, whether that's a 50-50 partner or 75-25. You can say to somebody, your services for 10 hours a week or 30 hours a week for this period of time equate to real economic value to my startup business. And I'm going to make you a partial owner so that when we start making a profit, in addition to your salary, you'll get some profit distribution. And we sell the business, everybody gets a piece. I talked to a guy last week, not my client, somebody else who just wanted to smile and shake hands. And he told me that when he sold his business about 8 months ago, 16 people got over $250,000. And I was just like, that's awesome. Like he said, yeah, some of those people were with me for a really long time. We ran the business for 20 years. And, that's, really, really significant to people. And it recognized, what they've done over a period of time. Okay, so sources of capital is something we could talk about for a while, but you're not going to get private equity. You're not going to get venture capital. You don't use credit cards if you don't have to. Those are not sources that are available, and those are not sources that you should use if you don't have to, okay? But Scott, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay. The next slide are the non-tax considerations of your choice of entity. One of the questions we tried to ask earlier was just to get a sense of how many of you have either formed a corporation or a limited liability company or have a partnership in place at this point. Business entities are really important, and each of these bullet points that you're looking at, each of these bullet points is either an entire course in law school or more than one. Go ahead, Mark. Oh, I'm sorry. I got you. These business entities and the nuances of them can go on in a great amount of detail. And as I said, there are entire courses on limited liability companies, partnerships, corporations, and those courses extend to just parts of those types of entities and what you might confront as an attorney out in practice. But the real issue for all of you when it comes to choosing an entity is liability protection. You have personal assets and you have business assets. And if you were 19 years old or 20 years old and you're building a bike and you don't know how to put the handlebars on that bike and a kid falls over the front of that bike and cracks his skull, you got huge liability. The good thing associated with that is you probably have no assets at 19. And if you built a crappy bike and somebody got hurt or died, the person who would want to sue you has nothing to collect against. Now, what I'm saying to all of you is right now, you may not have a whole lot to protect, but going forward, you will if you're successful at what you do. And setting up a business entity, whether it's a limited liability company or whether it's a corporation, will exclude partnerships for a while because they're an antiquated way of operating a business, and they really only work now for real estate transactions. But limited liability companies and corporations get created by filing one document with the state. And it's a one-page document that has the name of the business and the date it was formed and the business purpose if you choose to put on there. It doesn't disclose who the owners of the business are. It gives the state a resident agent's address so that if somebody needs to notify that business of some fact, they have an address where they can send a letter to. And then obviously, if you form your business under state law, you have a separate entity, then you're going to have a website and a phone number so your customers can reach you and you can reach out and touch the community. But setting up a business entity segregates your business assets from your personal assets. And then if something goes wrong with your business, you had a great business plan, you just executed it poorly because you brought on a guy like Mark and he was lackadaisical and didn't show up for work every day and ran your business into the ground. And now you're going to start over and you owe a bunch of people money. But if you don't owe those people money and your business does, the fact that you set up an LLC or a corporation is a really good fact. Now, and again, setting up these businesses is really straightforward. You can almost do it by yourself on the SDAT website if you're patient. You can generally click through and do that. And then the formality needed to protect yourself. And this is, I think, really important for all small business owners. You can't commingle your business assets with your personal assets. So if you think you're going to use a business account regularly, if you're going to write a lot of checks, bring in a lot of revenue, you don't want to use your personal checking account. You want to go to the bank and you want to open up a business account and understand that the bank's going to charge you a few dollars for it. Okay, that's not free like your checking account is if you have direct deposit from an employee. A bank's going to charge you for a business account. But you need to be able to show banks, landlords, potential creditors, the IRS, your lawyer, this is my business and this is my household. And I'm not paying my personal MasterCard bill with my business revenues. When you take your kids out for dinner on Friday night and you buy them pizza, that goes on your personal credit card. When you take your potential customers out for lunch on Wednesday, that goes on your business credit card. That segregation is not complicated, but a lot of people fail to pay attention to it. And it is the bane of small business owners' existence when the IRS comes knocking and you sit there and say, oh, I have 10 salespeople and they travel all around the country and none of them have personal credit cards for whatever reason. And they're all really good salespeople and they all put their business travel expenses, hotels, flights, meals, entertainment, all on my personal credit card, so that my business has a really, really expensive personal credit card that I get miles for. And that's why the guy did it. And that's a really, really bad idea. You can get the same miles for your business and use them for your business travel the same way you would for your personal travel. But the idea of, ensuring the protection that you get from setting up a separate entity is done by segregating your assets and maintaining that legal separateness, okay?
Hey, Paul, real quick, Mark asked a question in the chat there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Is an umbrella corp best to cover multiple businesses or should multiple? Okay. If the answer to this question is if you are going to own multiple, let me read, I'm sorry, because you didn't also, can you guys all see the question? Everybody can see the question, right? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you can all see the question. Okay, so if one person is going to own multiple business entities from a operational standpoint, it's really efficient that you have one company up top and that company owns all the smaller companies 100%. If you have two companies that you own 100%, that's not a big deal. You're still filing everything on your personal income tax return, and those two wholly owned businesses are likely going to be limited liability companies, and they're going to be on something called a Schedule C that's attached to your personal income tax return, and it shows your business expenses and it shows your business revenues, and it just passes up and is taxed on your personal return. So if you have 10 or 15 or 20 of those, then it's sometimes easier because you have expenses that really cover all of the businesses. When you do marketing, or you take somebody out that might become a consultant for your company, when you spend things on those businesses and you have multiple businesses, it helps to have them in a holding company because it's just an easier way to segregate instead of having 15 bank accounts set up. So that's a really good question. And it's an easy question to find an answer to depending on specific facts. I just generalized a great deal, and there might be reasons for setting up multiple businesses. And particularly if you have a key employee or multiple key employees, but they're only in this business versus that business versus the third one, you have different sets of minority owners in those businesses, then you might want to have them not under holding companies. But let's flip to the next slide, which is going to be the tax considerations. Okay. Now, again, there's a lot of information here, okay? What you want, the non-tax consideration, the key takeaway there is avoiding personal liability. With tax considerations, the key takeaway is let's pay the least amount of taxes possible. If anybody disagrees with that, I don't want you as a client, okay? I don't know why anybody pays extra taxes, okay? It's not a requirement. And the Supreme Court of the United States has said that taxpayers are entitled to structure their affairs in a way that minimizes their taxes. That same court, I think, has said that corporations are now people, and that's why corporations can set up their affairs in ways that really reduce significantly what they pay. That's way different than what you guys and I are going to be talking about today, okay? We can't park our income in Dublin. We can't park our income in Israel. We don't have those opportunities, okay? The treaties that are in place, all that stuff you read about big companies doesn't apply to us. But we have plenty of very straightforward tax planning opportunities, okay? And one of the simplest is you want to pay tax at one level, okay? C corporations pay taxes, and then when they distribute their profits, the owners of the business pay taxes again. So for instance, if anybody here has an investment portfolio, if you have mutual funds or you have stock in Microsoft, Microsoft makes a profit, they pay tax on it in the United States, pretty low. They pay taxes on it, and then they distribute that dividend to you. And when you get the dividend, you pay taxes again, okay? You as a small business owner, whether we set up a corporation or we have a limited liability company that's taxed as a corporation, you want to only pay tax on one level of income. And you do that, there are a number of different ways you can do that, okay? If you are a limited liability company and you're the sole owner of the business, you don't have partners, that income comes straight to your personal income tax return. Mark's nodding his head because he's got a couple of LLCs set up for his two small businesses, and he knows either when he does his tax return using TurboTax or when somebody does his tax returns for him, maybe his wife, he gets a tax return and there's these Schedule C. It has the name of his business on it. It has his advertising expense, whatever he spent money on for his business to generate the income, and it shows his profit or loss, and he just carries that over to the front page of his tax return, and he pays income on it the same way he paid income on his wages when he was working for a living, the same way he pays income on maybe the wages that his spouse is making, either from her job or from her business, but one level of tax, okay? If anybody says to you, elect to be a corporation, I'm going to nod, smile, and say, okay, but make it an S corporation, because S corporations only pay one level of tax, unlike C corporations. Microsoft cannot be an S corporation. Katrina's business and Cynthia's business, both of them, if they're corporations, they can elect to be S corporations, and then they only pay one level of tax. Okay, the flexibility you have, and maybe we could come back and do a whole multiple hours on the tax implications of all these different entities. But what I want you to take away is limited liability companies have the most flexibility from an income tax standpoint. They give you the same asset protection planning that corporations do, whether the corporations are C corporations or S corporations. LLCs and corporations have the same non-tax protection, but limited liability companies have more flexibility in terms of how they can operate formally, and they have absolute flexibility in terms of the pass-through tax consequences. So we, as taxpayers, my better clients, my smarter clients, want to pay the least amount of taxes possible. They use limited liability companies, and either they are 100% owned entities that are disregarded, or they're pass-through entities taxed as S corps or partnerships that get to one level of taxation. If you have a corporation, if the people who have corporations are all my old clients, they formed these businesses in the 70s and 80s, and they have real estate inside of C corporations. And the only way you can save taxes with that is very clever, but it's absolutely stone cold certain. You can die. If you die owning stock in a C corp, you escape all the income tax consequences. But you can't sell it while you own it, and it's a really, really bad situation to be in. Okay. Yes, I can definitely. Okay. There's no such thing as a limited liability corporation. There is a limited liability company. Okay, and these are all limited partnerships, corporations, and limited liability companies are all entities that are created under state law. So the Maryland business law statutes tell you what you have to do to form a limited liability company or a partnership or a corporation. And it's filing a piece of paper. With a limited partnership, it's called a certificate of limited partnership. With a corporation, it's articles of incorporation, cleverly enough. With a limited liability company, it's called a certificate of organization or articles of organization. And again, it's a very simple one-page form. And then from that point forward, I'm assuming we're all single member owners at this point and operating our small businesses without partners. But if we were to bring in additional owners, then we want to make sure we don't end up in a situation where we have a C corporation set up. We want to either have an S corporation or a partnership, which has one level of tax. Okay.
There was a question, Paul, about S corporation in the chat, I believe.
Okay, I'm sorry, say that again.
There's one question, I believe, in the chat about S corporations.
Yep.
What?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Can a person have a family member as a business partner for an S corporation? Yes. The answer to that is absolutely. Now, S corporations have limitations on who the shareholders can be, but being a family member is not one of the limitations. Okay. If you are S subchapter S corporation stands for small corporation. So you can only have up to 125 shareholders if it's an S corporation. If you get to the point where you have 125 shareholders, way to go. Okay. We got way bigger issues to worry about at that point. Okay. So you can have a family member. You can't have another C corporation be an owner. You can't have a individual who is not a U.S. citizen. You can't have an insurance company, and you can't have something called a domestic international sales corporation. So basically, all your friends and families can be shareholders in your S corp. Okay. And just I want to talk. I know I have a very limited amount of time, so I'm going to be brief, which is not my normal way of being, sorry. Two things. One, you have to pay your taxes, okay? This is not optional, and it's unbelievable how many super accomplished, super intelligent people show up in my office not having paid their taxes. And when you implement your business plan and you look at how much money you need to live on versus how much money you want to live on, and you have a plan that says, I'm ready to give up my job and go forward, you need to understand that if you've been having your taxes withheld at the source by your employer, like I do, I work for Lord Brewer, I get my paycheck every 2 months, my CFO takes my withholdings out of my paycheck. If you're not doing that as a small business owner, you got to stop and look at the end of every month and say, I brought in 10,000, I only spent 2, I got $8,000 in my bank account. Look at me, way to go. All right. You need to stop and say, if I'm going to make $8,000 a month, that's going to be $96,000 at the end of the year. And I owe $25,000 in taxes to the IRS, and I owe $5,000 to the state of Maryland. And it's not complicated to pay your taxes. Again, that's one of those things where if you don't have a financial background, figuring out how to pay estimated taxes may seem complicated, but it's a coupon that's the size of a check, okay? And all you have to do is put your social security number on it, write the amount of the check, and mail it in. So you definitely need to pay your estimated taxes, okay? And then self-employment taxes are a really important issue for small business owners. Self-employment taxes are Social Security and Medicare, okay? It's about 15.3%. That seems like a lot of money. It is a lot of money. Your employer right now pays half of it. Whoever you work for takes out of your paycheck, in addition to withholding for your federal and state taxes, they take out half of that 15.3, 7.65 to cover Social Security and Medicare. And then you pay half of it. So right now, when you sit there and look at your paycheck, you're like, yeah, I hate having that 7.65 taken out. But when you become self-employed, you're responsible for paying the whole thing. So you really need to be cognizant of that, because you don't want to get to the end of the year and realize I had a really successful year. I made $200,000 of profit, and oh my God, I didn't withhold enough taxes for self-employment, and I owe 15% on top of whatever you might have already paid for your income taxes. So definitely keep an eye on your self-employment taxes. And Katrina and Cynthia, I will definitely get on the phone with the two of you and talk to you about that self-employment thing, about what you can do, setting up an S corp to save some self-employment taxes. Okay.
All right, so Paul, we have some questions, but let's get through the presentation, and then we'll kind of tick through the questions after.
Okay, yeah, I guess my last slide, thank you. My last slide is just developing a support network. This goes to what you're doing right now, okay, and what Alicia's pointing out to you. There's a lot of help out there. Nobody is going to do. Bill Gates didn't do it himself. He's the richest guy in the world, but when you go back and look at that picture from 1976 of all those Harvard dropouts, what a degenerate bunch. And look what they did. We all need help to get where we are. Cynthia, Alicia said, I've been working here for 25 years, man. I have. This is awesome. I love what I do. I work for the best law firm in the world. But for 5 years, I was working at a different law firm and another law firm, and it didn't fit, and they didn't think I was so special. So, we all need help getting to our end goal. And there are a ton of resources out there. And knowing that there are things that you can't be a master of everything. You can't know how to terminate the pregnant, disabled employee if that becomes a situation. You can't know how to be the guru of social media and online marketing if you're an old chubby white guy like me, okay? I don't do social media. I got Scott. It's a great thing to have. And everybody needs to know that they need to have more people around them. And that's, that's a key. I look at my nephews right now, they're 22, 24 years old, and they network more than I ever did at that age. They're sitting there talking to people that went to their high school, that people that went to their colleges, people who are from their colleges, that live in different parts of the country. They're all in chat groups together. I never did any of that stuff, but now I sit here and I'm like, I'm the guru of putting people together, and I highly recommend it to all of you. Okay, I think we're done with the slide, Scott, and the question from Audrey is, for an S corp, you can approve an investor as a partner who can give you 5% commission on either licensing royalties or on manufacturing. Who can give you, or you want to give, who you can give. Okay. Yeah, here, there's a little bit of a nuance, Audrey, with S corporations that's slightly different than C corporations. The owners of an S corporation all have to be treated the same economically. But so that means when we make 100, we generate our revenues, we pay all our expenses, we have a profit at the end of the year. I'm a 70% owner, Mark's a 30% owner. I get 70, he gets 30. Everybody's got to get it proportionately. But if Mark is also an employee of the company and he's my key sales guy, and I'm saying to him, damn, you crushed it in 2020, really tough year, and you helped us keep the company alive. I can look at my 100 and say, before we do that proportionate 70-30 split that's required for S Corps, before we do that, I'm looking at Mark and saying, I'm going to take 20 off the top, and I'm going to give that to you. And now we have 80 that we're going to split 70-30, and you got 20 in your pocket. So yes, you can definitely pay commissions to a shareholder, to a 5% shareholder for licensings or royalties. You know, if they're contributing, either they're providing a service or they're contributing some type of intellectual property. Maybe they had the clever company name, the website. You know, those are the kind of things, the types of intellectual property that people pay royalties for.
Okay.
What else did I miss, Scott? Talk to me.
Yeah, so we're at 1 o'clock. So if anybody needs to jump off, we are recording this. I'll send it to everybody who's signed up. But Paul, if you don't mind, if we can stick around maybe for another 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, sure, no problem. You know me, man. I love an audience.
So I will. I'm just going to tick through the questions here, starting from a bit ago,
Okay.
and that'll make it easier than you having to read through them.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
The first one is, what is the easiest way to build credit in your business name?
Yeah, that is a chicken and an egg problem. If you can get a credit card with a small amount of money on it, with like a $1,000 credit limit, and go out and spend $200 in January and repay it February 12th, and do the same thing for 1, 2, or 3 months, and then your credit card company, like clockwork, every 3 to 5 months will allow you to raise your credit limit. The problem is, I don't know if that's going to be the adequate source of capital ultimately, because credit cards are short-term financing sources, not long-term, because the interest rate on that credit card is going to be, 18, 21, 27%. It's going to be ridiculous. Look at Mark. He's like, oh yeah, I tried that once. But don't do that again. Okay.
All right. For a company providing primarily IT services, what kind of liability would there be? The IT services would not include any personal information.
If you are a consultant and you provide IT services to somebody else, the way, and you're right that it's not likely that something can happen, but if there is information inside of your client's system and somebody breaches that, it's not beyond the pale to say, oh, well, our IT guy, gave us this is how we protect it. This is the cybersecurity software program that he implemented for us, and he blew it because it didn't work. Now, my advice there would be, make sure your contract with the client doesn't have a warranty of any nature, and that it expressly states that you're not providing a warranty, and that you're giving them your service on an as-is basis, and if they get sued by somebody else, they can't sue you. Now, that might take some time and effort for you to spending time with a lawyer and understanding what the agreement is. And I will tell you, we have this issue in spades where vendors come to us and they give us contracts, and I have to talk to my chief operating officer and say, hey, don't sign that contract. Look at this and look at this. They're saying they're going to come in and blow up our internet service. And if they do that, we're telling them they're not responsible for it. Personally, I want people standing behind the services they're providing for me. I tell my clients that when they walk in the door, if you don't like me, you can fire me. If you don't like me, you don't have to pay my bill. You're only going to pay my bill if I'm good at what I do and you like the work I do for you at the end of the day. Everybody seems to understand that that's got a level of, formality to it that is respectable. But I would say be really careful. If you're concerned about liability, have a contract with somebody. And again, if you own your house, if you're in a second career and you've got something to protect, that's important. If you're 22 and just got out of school and, all you have is your student debt and that bicycle that I built 80 years ago, then don't worry about it.
What's the average budget for legal services for small companies employing about 5 people?
If it's just you and right now you're a sole proprietor and you want to set up a limited liability company that segregates your personal assets from your business assets, it's probably $500 or $600. The state has a filing fee that is about $300. If you ask a firm like ours to do that for you, we don't charge for that. We don't upcharge for that. Whatever the state charges us to file it, that we pass that along to you. You're going to get to spend another hour with me on the phone, maybe somebody younger than me that has a lower hourly billable rate. But, that's not, it is not a heavy lift to put a single member limited liability company in place. So $500 to $1,000, including the filing fee with the state, maybe less, depending on how many questions you ask me and how talkative I am.
If you want to provide a service to the government and your employees will require clearance, how do you go about that?
I don't know the nuances of what you have to do, but it's an application. And what I end up having to do is I verify things that are in applications. The government investigators call me and say, they listed all these businesses. They listed you as having been their lawyer for X period of time. They listed you as a personal reference that you went to GW with them, in 19 whatever, I went to GW, that's the background stuff that they come to me for. But the security clearances are detailed applications. I don't know that there's anything specific. They'll ask you if you ever filed bankruptcy. They'll ask you if you've ever been arrested, convicted, all that sort of stuff. But not, I know some complete clowns that have really high level security clearances. So it's not a bulletproof process. Sorry, Andre. It's true. It's true, man. I'm not, the highest clearance you can get as a civilian is you can be the equivalent of a 1-star general. And I know a couple of people and I'm like, how? But that's the way it is. What else, Scott? Talk to me.
All right, we got 3 more.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if you covered this earlier, but I'll say it. What are the tax liabilities on passing real estate from personal property to your corporation?
Scott, show me the questions. I just want to read it again.
Yeah, it's from Mark. It's the 1253. What are the tax liabilities on passing real estate from personal?
Okay. I'm going to assume you have a piece of property that is maybe it's personal use, it's a condo, and you rent it out at the beach, and now you want to make it a business property? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Can we unmute Mark so he can ask me the question?
He is unmuted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Say it again louder.
Yes, it is a piece of property that I personally own that I want to add to.
Can't hear him.
You still can't hear?
Do you have a headset plugged in, Mark, or something? It sounds like it just sounds very faint.
No, I don't have a headset.
Okay.
I'm talking into my computer. Is that any better? I hate to get so close to it.
Is that better, Paul?
Yeah.
No, I just didn't hear him. Okay. You can convert real estate that's a personal asset into a business asset. Okay. If you have a beach house that you use, you and your family go out there, maybe you bought it with your brother, and you're using it for 2 weeks a year, your family, 2 weeks a year, his family. And now you're saying, oh, we want to rent it out and we want to take depreciation for it. And if we have to do any maintenance and clean up, we got to pay a management fee. You can convert that into a business property. The cost, there's no income tax cost associated with that. You don't have to pay the government. You don't have to pay the IRS. You don't have to pay the income taxes to the state of Maryland. If you want to move the title of the property from your name into an LLC, there's transfer and recordation taxes. But if it's the only property you own and it's going into a wholly owned LLC, you don't have multiple commercial real estate properties, you don't have to pay tax on that transfer of all of your property, which would be one, into an LLC now. And then going forward, you can buy property in that LLC or set up multiple LLCs. But generally, no income tax consequence associated with moving real estate from personal to business, only transfer and recordation taxes. And those can be avoided sometimes.
Great. Next one, I have a company called Connex Inc. It's a C Corp based in Delaware. I received a PPP loan for it. I am thinking about creating a sub-company called Connex Consulting LLC, which is a spinoff. Would this affect my PPP loan? And also, what would the tax effects be?
Okay, let me deal with the tax effects first, okay? When you say spin off, do you want the new new LLC can be owned by the corporation? There's absolutely no problem with that. And if you wanted to take whatever the business operation is of the LLC out from under the C corporation, you can do that too as well, with a minimal income tax consequence, maybe nothing, just depending on what the value of that new business is. If it's a startup, there's probably a pretty good chance that we could say it's got a high potential for generating net worth in the future, but today it's not a problem. So if you wanted to get to, you own a corporation and you own an LLC, you can get there, or you can have the LLC owned by the C corporation, and it all will get reported on the C corporation's tax return. The PPP loan is a different animal, and your restructuring has nothing to do with your PPP loan. Where I assume you are right now is you are, or you're about to file an application to get PPP forgiveness. And what you want to be careful about is you don't want to transfer ownership of your company. You can't sell your business today if that forgiveness application is pending. There are actually procedures out there for companies that have PPP loans that are being sold. You have to go to the SBA, you have to go to the bank, and you have to stand on top of a barrel and sing for a while, and eventually they'll let you do it. But I have a lousy singing voice too. I know that's hard to believe.
All right, last one. How often do you need to pay estimated taxes on profits? Monthly, quarterly?
That's a really good question. Really big taxpayers do it every day. Very large companies. You and I running, a typical modest business, if you do it monthly, you're fine. The slowest amount of time that you can do it in is quarterly. And honestly, what happens is many small businesses, they just stop paying attention to it sometimes. If you have a good CFO because you've gotten to a certain size, or you have a nice outside accountant who sends you reminders, who helps you, tickle something to, hey, it's August 3rd, let's make sure we send this in by the 12th, then it's easy and simple to do, once a quarter. But, what I tell my small business owners is you just need to understand that you got to live on the net. You make, like my example where you made 10, you spent 2, and you got 8 in the bank. You got to understand you only have 5 in the bank. Or if you use that entire 8 in the early part of the next month to buy more inventory, to pay for your marketing expenses, and now you get to the end of month 2, and in month 2 you generated 15, and you spent 8, you had 7. Now you owe the IRS taxes for 2 months. The penalties and interest associated with not paying the IRS are punitive. It's different than not paying your bank. It's different than not paying your landlord. It's different than not paying your brother. Not paying the IRS is way more expensive. Okay, everybody heard that loud and clear.
All right, good. All right. We just had one last minute one come in, so this will be the final one. Can you transfer a property into an LLC name from your personal name if the property still has a mortgage?
You need to get the bank's approval to do that, and it'll depend on how much business you do with them, how much equity there is in the property. And again, I think the issue there is also going to be make sure you don't pay transfer and recordation taxes. But you can't, if you tried to transfer the property from your personal name into the LLC, when you go to file the deed, the bank mortgage is going to be on file. So the recorder of the deeds, wherever you are in Prince George's County, they're going to stop and look and say, what are you doing transferring that property? There's a $50,000 mortgage on it. And so they will not accept the deed in the name of the LLC unless the bank comes in and says they can transfer it. So you can do it, but you can't do it without telling the bank.
Very good. All right.
Hey, thanks again for the opportunity. I really appreciate talking to everybody. Cynthia, I got your phone number. I'm going to tie you in, okay? And Katrina, if your number's on there, if it's in that chain in the group chat, I'll be calling you too, okay?
So, wow, that was just amazing. Everybody, a little clap for Paul. I mean, great job. Amazing. So thank you. I'm just great. Having the tax and the legal side of it combined is a real treasure. So thank you for doing what you've done.
You're welcome. Happy to do it.
So we know that Paul is around and can be found. His number's on the screen, his email's on the screen, my email's on the screen. So please reach out, be in touch with us. Know that this is just the beginning, right? So you have questions now, you're going to continue to have questions as you grow your business. So know that this is an important part. As Paul mentioned early on, make sure your accountant, your lawyer, your banker, they're all part of your team. And the more that they understand what you're trying to do as a business owner, the better they can help you. So keep in touch with them. They also know lots of people who might be able to help you in other ways, as Paul mentioned earlier as well. So just like us, lots of ways to connect people to different resources. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for participating. And I hope you'll come back and join us again for our next Lurch, Early and Brewer PGC EDC Innovation Station program that'll be coming up in January. But in the meantime, you have everybody's contacts. Please keep in touch. And thank you again for being here. And thank you, Paul and Scott, for your support. We appreciate you.